Hello everybody, it's Merlin here, and I have a little bit of a reaction video for you. It turns out that Final Fantasy VII is getting a remake. A whole new remake, I believe released for the PS4 coming out, I believe slated for fairly soon, right? It's been in development. A friend of mine just showed me the little trailer just building up. You just saw Cloud's sword, and you saw Barrett's machine gun, and that was pretty much it. You just had this cool voiceover, and it looked awesome. Now, what are my thoughts on this? You might be surprised. I know that there's a lot of die-hard Final Fantasy VII fans out there that, honestly, it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of surprising that it's taken this long to do this, because literally, this is one of the most popular RPGs of all time, and people have been asking for a remake of this game probably for about a decade. And we're finally going to get it. Now, I think it's going to look awesome, to be honest, at the very least. And I want to get completely psyched for this. And I have very conflicted feelings about this, because Final Fantasy, for me, I will admit, I'm not the most diehard fan of the whole franchise, but there was a brief time when I was really into everything Final Fantasy, and I really do like the games, and I respect everything behind them. I think that they are some of the best JRPGs ever. I really love Final Fantasy VII, though it is definitely one of my favorites, but I actually really like Final Fantasy IV quite a bit, and I also enjoy 12. I haven't played them all, but yes, Final Fantasy VII's up there for me, but it's not my favorite. Even so, I'm a little bit of a purist about certain things. I generally don't like it when they remake classic games. I mean, I know that it's one of those things where I know people always kind of go for what's flashier, what's newer. I kind of like things to kind of stay the way they are, admittedly, like rooted in the time, and I feel like if they're reflected by the time in which they were created, that's kind of what adds to the charm of the creation. Because the original Final Fantasy VII was revolutionary for its time, sure, and I know people want updated graphics, and I'll be honest, I hope that's all they change. You know, if they just update the graphics and everything else is the same, you know, maybe they expand the world, add a few little things, of course, but there's just something so awesome about the original game. I don't know if it really needed to be remade. I know people wanted it, but I don't know. I've always kind of liked the classic games. I mean, it's like saying, to give you an example, remaking Mario, but trying to completely up it, completely modernize it. And but at the same time, you have the original Mario. You know, I mean, it's a classic side-scroller. It kind of is what it is. Like, I think some things are kind of best left the way they are. Now, then again, every time they've tried to expand on this and do Final Fantasy VII extensions, none of them have really worked that well for spin-offs and whatnot. So, I don't know. I have to confess, I'm actually more excited for the new Fallout game, or heck, even the Doom remake. You know, I'm actually more excited for. Final Fantasy VII, I don't know. I kind of love the charm of the original game. So, I'm actually not as excited about it as I know some people probably are, and that's fine if you are. That's great. But, I don't know, it's kind of like when people remake classic movies or classic TV shows. You know, my feelings about video games are very similar to my feelings about anime and classic films. Like, I like when a film comes out at a particular time, or an anime comes out at a particular time, the animation's not the best, but the story bleeds through. Like, Fist of the North Star, for instance, I've been watching it recently, and it's got some fairly primitive animation. Like, not horrible, but it's dated. It's not the best even for the 80s. But it still kind of works, and it has its charm and its appeal, and it's reflective of the time in which it came out. I feel like Final Fantasy VII is definitive for that late 90s, revolutionary for the time, and I think we should appreciate that. I don't want the original game to be overshadowed, and people just say, oh, this is better. You know, I mean, technically, it might be better, but it still won't be the same. You know? Like, sometimes the greatest perfection lies within the imperfections. I mean, that's what causes conversation about anything. And the system, honestly, for the combat was great in Final Fantasy VII. The leveling, really, honestly, It was great. It was a great combat system. Very, very easy to use. Very simple. I don't really want them to change too much of that, honestly. I know that they want to expand it, make it new and different so people will buy it, but all I'm really saying is this. I think that if they just make the original game, keep the same basic concept, and just update the graphics, I really feel like that's all they need to do. Really, I don't want them to change Final Fantasy VII too much. If you're going to make it a remake, try to keep it fairly close to the original. You got to spice it up, obviously, but don't stray too far from what made the game originally awesome. You don't need to change too much. You know? Anyway, I'm still looking forward to it. I think it'll be cool. I'm sure I'll end up playing it, or at least end up involved in playing it somehow. We'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about this. Final Fantasy VII finally getting a remake is pretty big news. So, curious. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Alright, guys. This is Merlin out, signing off. Peace.